So these last chapters, the first canto, we are hearing about the departure of Lord Krishna, and then the departure of the Pandavas, and we hear about the birth of Maharaj Pariksit and his wonderful qualities. Because before Maharaj Yudhishthira wanted to retire, he was in anxiety. He was thinking, I need a qualified successor. Because Lord Krishna appeared on this planet, one of the reasons was to re-establish the principles of religion. And he wanted the entire world to be ruled by a Mahabharata devotee. A Mahabharata devotee is not just a pure devotee. It's the master of all pure devotees. So you have in the Varnashram you have the Brahmins, but a Mahabharata is even above the Brahmins, instructs the Brahmins. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was on that level. And he was worrying, I want to retire, but I need a qualified successor. And then Maharaj Pariksit took birth. And these astrologers, they described all his qualities. And Maharaj Yudhishthira was pacified. He understood, this is a Mahabharata. Now I can retire. And he enthroned Maharaj Pariksit. And in the previous chapter, we heard about all the qualities of such a great, of this great emperor. And now in this chapter 17, we hear about his activities, how a Bhagavad devotee rules. And as he was the emperor, twice a year he would go out to inspect his kingdom. And to inspect his kingdom and to see whether everyone was following the religious principles that we will learn today. We see the bull on the screen. He has this, in his normal condition, he has 4 legs. He has only one left here. It's truthfulness, compassion, austerity, and of course cleanliness. These are the basic rules for religion. If one does not follow these rules, one is not religious. It's not considered religious. They are the minimum to be considered religious. So you have lower principles of religion and you have higher principles of religion. The lower principles of religion are these 4 pillars. Satya, truthfulness, tapa, austerity, doya, mercy, and of course cleanliness, saucham. These are the 4, and therefore we follow the regulative principles in our movement. Every yogi must follow these lower principles to control one's senses, one must follow these 4 regulative principles. Because if you eat meat and so on, that's not compassionate. Yeah. Illicit sex is contaminating the mind, it's not clean. Drinking alcohol, intoxication, one loses one's austerity. And of course, truthfulness. The truth is we are not his body. That we must accept the truth. So these are lower principles of religion. But of course, to go back to the spiritual world, we must follow the higher principles, which is bhakti, love for Krishna. But to come to that point, one must follow first the lower. So these are lower principles of religion. You have other lower principles of religion in the scriptures. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha are lower principles. And the varnashram, kshatriya, vaishya, sudra, brahman, brahmachari, shriyasta, vanaprastha, and sannyas. These are all basic principles. But here we have this bull, one leg. Now Maharaj Pariksit was touring its kingdom, and he would not allow any neglect of these principles. But then he saw Kali. Kali had entered from the moment Krishna left, before he could not enter. Kali, evil personified. Kali wants to be where there is gold and illicit sex. And Kali was dressed as a king. He was a Sudra dressed as a king. And he was beating a bull and a cow. And Maharaj Pariksit became very, very upset. He was going to take his sword and kill him at the spot. But before doing that, he had a conversation with the bull and with the cow. And he said to the bull, it's strange, are you a demigod or something? You are standing on one leg. Who can stay on one leg? Did you ever see a bull standing on one leg? It's mystical, right? So also, Maharaj Pariksit, he was asking, yeah, and you are missing 3 legs, and I see there are tears coming from your eyes. Who has done this to you? And the bull said, and that's interesting, his reply. The bull said, I don't know. I don't know who has done it. That I can't answer your questions. He gives a few hints why he cannot ascertain who has done it. And then the king replied to the bull, and that's the verse of today, and that's the verse I want to study with you. This verse is very important. If you can apply this verse, you will make very quickly spiritual advancement. And this verse is not considering the spiritual technique explained in this verse. Is one of the reasons why we can't make spiritual advancement, really. Why our spiritual advancement is blocked. So it's a very important principle we are going to hear today. So text 1:17-22. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Stop sharing the bull. That on speaker view. Good. That Rajo Vacha Dharmam Bhavishi Dharmahya Dharmashi Visharupadik Yatta Dharmakita Stanam Suchakashapi Tatbhavad. The king said, "O you who are born in the form of a bull, you know the truth of religion, and you are speaking according to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator of religious acts is also intended for one who identifies the perpetrator. You are no other than the personality of religion." So the English is a bit, for maybe difficult to understand. So I will just read the translation also in Dutch.
Ja.
De koning zei: "O gij in stiergedaante, u kent de waarheid de religie en spreekt volgens het beginsel dat het lot dat iemand treft die onreligieuze daden bedrijft, ook degene treft die de dader aanbrengt. U bent niemand anders dan de religie in eigen persoon." Although I don't find that the translation is the same, because translation is always an interpretation. It is said to the principle that the destination intended for the perpetrator. Destination means the perpetrator, he goes to hell, and the one who identifies the perpetrator is also going to hell. So going to hell is a destination, and I think that's better than iemand zijn lot. It's a detail, but that. Now I will read a part of the conclusion of the purport, Srila Prabhupada. A devotee's conclusion is that no one is directly responsible for being benefactor or mischief monger without the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, he does not consider anyone to be directly responsible for such action. But in both the cases, he takes it for granted that either benefit or loss is God sent, and thus it is his grace. In case of benefit, no one will deny that it is God sent, but in case of loss of reverses, one should become doubtful about how the Lord could be so unkind to his devotee as to put him in great difficulty. Jesus Christ was seemingly put in such great difficulty, being crucified by the ignorant, but he was never angry at the mischief mongers. So Jesus Christ was crucified, Srila Prabhupada says. That Srila Prabhupada many times spoke on this topic. Srila Prabhupada would say, "Thou shalt not kill." So we have the 10 commandments in Christianity. If you look at these 10 commandments, most of these 10 commandments, I think I went over it, 9 out of 10 or 8 out of 10, it fit clearly in these 4 basic principles of religion: truthfulness, cleanliness, doya, mercy, and austerity. So the Bible says, thou shalt not kill. And the first person they killed was Jesus Christ, Srila Prabhupada said. And in such a horrible way, they crucified him. Sometimes we think very romantically about surrender. And how wonderful is that I surrender to Krishna, and then we get roses, Charanamrita, roses with no thorns, only rose petals on them. But if we see each, Srila Prabhupada said, each and every of Jesus' direct followers were crucified in one way or another. To surrender means to put yourself in Lord Krishna's hands, seeing everything, good or bad, as his kindness, as his benediction and mercy. The question is, are we ready for that? Everyone must answer it for oneself. It means to place oneself in Krishna's hands. So Krishna does not only offer garlands and Mahaprasad, so it's quite heavy. Srila Prabhupada said, and Jesus, he did not become angry. He said, they do not know what they do. So in the purport further, Srila Prabhupada then says, that is the way of accepting a thing either favorable or unfavorable. Thus for a devotee, the identifier is equally a sinner, like the mischief monger. We will analyze this more deeply. That means that a person is equally in ignorance. The one who benefits us and the one who gives pain, equal in ignorance. So by God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses. So one needs to have a broad vision of what one's existence is. One needs to see oneself as an eternal servant of Krishna. I remember that Narada Muni, one time he went to Krishna and he said to Krishna, what did you do with these Pandavas? You give them so much suffering? Are you hypnotizing them? They are going to so much suffering and their love for you only increases. So that's interesting. That a good thing and a bad thing must come in that perspective that we are a servant of Krishna. For a devotee, so-called good or bad, everything is considered to be auspicious. Therefore, it's not cheap to be a devotee of Krishna. So he's so dear to Krishna because he's a devotee. Not that Krishna slaps him, and then I'm not a devotee anymore. I heard Giriraj Maharaj a few days ago saying that he had a disciple, and was a girl, and she was chanting and following the principle, initiated disciple, and she was from Indian background, and her mother was worshipping demigods. But by the influence of good influence of our daughter, she started to worship only Krishna, and she started to chant Hare Krishna. But then after doing that for a few weeks, a few months maybe, she broke her hip. And then she said, you see, I become a devotee of Krishna, and what happens? I get a broken hip, that's what I get. this is what I get. That now I've been cursed by all the other gods, demigods, because I've worshipped Krishna. So that's cheap. That's not what it means to be a devotee of Krishna. Bali Maharaj was taking everything away. Everything, all his possessions, his honor, his fame, because he had promised 3 steps, he could only give 2. That he was cursed by his spiritual master, lost everything. But by doing that, for the pleasure of Krishna, he became very dear to Vamandev, to Krishna. And one thing he did not give away, and that was his determination. His determination, whatever good or bad, I will serve Krishna. And that's required. So not that Krishna slaps you and then I'm not a devotee anymore. Devotee means devotion. Devotion means continuous. It has to spring from the heart. So by God's grace, the devotee tolerates all reverses, and he sees the Supreme Lord in everything. But let's go back now. Let's go back now to that point. Why should one not identify the doer, the perpetrator, the dader? So the bull before, when Maharaj Parikshit asked, who has done this to you? The bull said, first the bull appreciated the king and said, you have questioned me about the identity, you have caused me to suffer, but I'm not able to tell you. There are so many different philosophical opinions about who is the doer. Some philosophers claim that we ourselves are causing our difficulties. Others claim it's caused by Brahman, the spiritual effulsions. Atheists say there's no cause that exists beyond material nature. That the causes are unknowable, and therefore, please conclude with your own intelligence. But if we are going back to text 19, where I just read the translation of 19. So the bull said, some of the philosophers who deny all sorts of duality declare that one's own self is responsible for his personal happiness and distress. Others say that superhuman powers are responsible, while others say the activity is responsible. And the gross materialists maintain that the nature is the ultimate cause. So he is saying different things here. That some say you yourself are responsible. Today, that's a very popular philosophy. You have to take responsibility for yourself. Control your life. Take control of your life. And if you don't take responsibility for your life, then suffer. You have heard that, these things. Or others say it's superhuman powers that are responsible. It's the gods. What can we do? It's out of our control. And the bull says, yes. And others say it's activity. And it's just my karma, Prabhu. That's what it is. It's just a reaction. And then you have gross materialists. They say, yeah, that's how material nature works. What can we do? So the bull continues. There are also some thinkers who believe that no one can ascertain the cause of distress by argumentation, nor know it by imagination, nor express it by words. O sage among kings, judge for yourself by thinking over all this with your own intelligence. So that's the 5th point. One can conclude, nobody can know it, so what to do? And it's true. Someone is beating you with a stick. What's the cause? Is it the stick that, or is it the person who holds the stick who beats you? Or is it the mother of the one who holds the stick? Because when he was young, his mother has beaten him. Or is it the husband of his mother who abused his mother? That who can say? In this way, everyone in this world is bewildered. But generally, when we reflect on the cause of our difficulties, our answers may be less philosophical, right? For most people don't go in philosophy when something happens like that. They immediately accuse a person of a group. It's him that, or it's this group. So they are immediately identifying the doer. That, so we have, if we do that, let's look a bit about what's happening in the mind. Let's go a bit in the psychology of the mind, what's happening. You identify a doer. Immediately, impressions of retaliation enter your mind. I will get him. And that enters deeply your consciousness. It's made a deep impression, or and that comes together with the intelligence, making justifiable thoughts and making plans of retaliation, and that these plans will implicate us in more painful exchanges. This is all one reason why one should not identify with hurters. Especially, you will suffer great pains of the heart. Of course, we will want to get even with that person, and they will want to get even with us. And the fight will go on practically forever. It seems people are born to give trouble to other specific people, and it can go on like that, birth after birth. So do we want to be around to get even next life, or should we avoid it? It's up to us. Another point is, by meditating on the bad qualities of others, what happens in our heart? We will develop the same qualities based on that what we are meditating on. This is explained in the first chapter of the 7th canto. There you have the example of a grass worm. A grass worm enters a little hole in the wall, and outside there is a bee waiting for the grass worm to come out. And the grass worm is in great anxiety, always thinking of this bee, and when it leaves his body, then it becomes a bee. So when something really disturbs us, even if it is something negative, what can we do? Tolerate. Just tolerate. The reality is that an accurate understanding of what really occurs exists on more than one level. More than one level. Things are happening. More than one level. It's karma. It's Krishna's will. Krishna gives us what we need to learn. So if one is of course, if one is unreasonably beaten by a man with a stick, then what do? You must defend yourself, right? Not just tolerate also, but you have to defend yourself or you suffer great pain. So the beater may not have the best intention or interest in mind. So dealing in this on that level means prompt action, immediate action, protect yourself, even if we see it as God's grace. So, but we must always remember Krishna as the ultimate control. He's the ultimate doer. The consciousness, along with our actions on the practical level, bearing anxiety and anger, will carry us to the, if we bear it, if we tolerate it, all this anxiety and anger, it will carry us to the lotus feet of Krishna. Because everything that happens is ultimately Krishna's will. Not a blade of grass moves with the Lord's sanction. If we understand that, then we can remain free from anxiety, even amidst the great difficulty. So, there is practical action, and there is theoretical understanding, philosophical understanding. It must be there both at the same time. And at the same time, one must act practically. In the purport of 1:1723, which is the next verse, Srila Prabhupada says that the Lord is also not directly responsible, as he deputed his control to Maya Sakti, his energies, the material energy. But most important is that we surrender to him, return to the spiritual world. But each living entity has been gifted by free will. And Krishna's Maya Sakti reciprocates with us, independent from Krishna's desires. Thus we are under Maya Sakti, represented by the laws of material nature, which are also under Krishna's ultimate jurisdiction. I want to explain that a little deeper, because that presentation is a bit for those who are a bit advanced in the philosophy. And I want to go back to basics to explain that a bit more deeper. That the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there Lord Krishna speaks to Arjuna that, and he says, 5:14, Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya chichache prabhu, na karma phala samyogan svavastu bhavartate. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. So, here in that verse, Krishna says, we are not doing anything in this world. Everything is done by material nature. Okay? So, I move my hands, it's done by material nature. Thinking is done by material nature. It's all done by material nature, Krishna says. So the soul does not do nothing in this world. And that's confirmed in 30:30 of Bhagavad Gita. There Krishna says that again, that's very esoteric, but we will explain that to get a little deeper understanding in these things. And it's important that understanding will free you from bondage if you really understand that. 13 chapter, verse 30. Prakrit sheva sakarmani kriyamani sarvasa yapashat atatmam akartram sapashati. When you can see that all activities are performed by the body, which is created of material nature, sees that the self does nothing, actually sees. That's real. So, Krishna says, We are not doing anything in the world, is material nature. In the next verse it says, 5:15, nadat ik uit Chitpapam naar 7 stukken Tamfibu, Agyane na Vitam Gyanam Tenamyantayantava. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone sinful or pious activities, embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So here Krishna says, I'm not responsible for the actions of the living entities. So here Krishna says, I'm also not the doer. So now the confusion is complete. We are not the doer, Krishna is not the doer. How can we understand that? Therefore, we have to go to the 18th chapter of the Gita. What are we doing? What are we not doing? Krishna says there are, yes, in 18th chapter, verse 14, Adishtanam tata karta karanam sapitach vividas sapitach shista devam sevata panchna. The place of action, the body, the performer, the various senses, the many different kinds of endeavor, and ultimately the super soul. These are the 5 factors of action. 5 factors of action is the body. The body. Do we control the body? Do you control your heartbeat? Do you control your digestion? Do you control what you can remember? You control it? No, we don't control. The reality is we don't control the body. With that, but the senses are part of the body, right? The senses are part of the body. And then all thoughts in our mind, do we control that? No. It's also Krishna. It's done by the super soul, the 4th factor. But the 5th factor, the super soul. The super soul controls the body, controls all the endeavors in the mind, controls the senses. But then it says the karta, the performer. Oh, here we have it. The performer. What does it mean? The karta is one of these 5 factors, the performer. And that's the soul. The soul does things by desiring. We desire. I desire to move my hand. And there it goes. But there it goes, that's material nature. I only desire. So desire, that's the point. That's what the soul does. And then we desire, and we are responsible for our desires. That now we can desire in 2 ways. 2 ways. You can desire to serve Krishna and to give pleasure to Krishna. That's called spiritual desire. Or you can desire, I want to enjoy, I want to have this mind. Yes, let's enjoy life. I want to get more and more of this. Big bank balance. That's material desire. Like you have 2 buttons. The red one and the green one. If you desire to enjoy this world, you push the red button, and the red button activates material nature. And material nature says, yes, I will execute according to your desire and to your karma. That is just neutral. Neutral. You will get your reaction. That pushing the red button. But if you push the green button, I want to serve Krishna, then there is no karma. And you become purified. You make spiritual advancement. So that the karta is desire, and we desire what we want. We want to enjoy this body and this mind, which we are not, with this madness. We want to enjoy temporary things, which are here for a few moments, and the body is also here for a few moments. But Krishna says, I am not responsible. You have pushed the button. You pushed the red button. You are responsible. You have pushed. I am not responsible. You can also push the green one, the spiritual one. So we are pushing the buttons by our desire. Srila Prabhupada says in the purport of the Bhagavad Gita, this material desire is a subtle form of conditioning. That's why we become conditioned. If we want to enjoy, we have to forget Krishna. So this is an important point to understand, that Krishna is not responsible. But then, interesting, in the 9th chapter, Krishna says, Samam sarvabhuteshu namidveshasti napriya. He said, I'm equal to all living entities as a Paramatma in the heart. As a super soul, it's one of these 5 factors who controls material nature, right? The super soul. And Krishna says, as a super soul, I'm neutral. I just give the reactions according to your karma, like a judge. A judge says this person must be hanged. He has committed murder. And this person, he gets 1 million euro. He deserves it. But it's because of their previous actions. And the super soul is like that. He says, I'm equal. But then he says, Yeba chantatamam bhaktya maitatesa sapyam. But those who are worship me with devotion, I'm their friend, I'm going to take care of them. That's for those who are pushing the green button, the spiritual button. There Krishna says, oh, I'm going to take care of them. And Krishna says in 9:25 Bhagavad Gita, Ananya Sintyatamam Yechna Payapaste Tesam Nitya Bhuktyam Yoga Sena Bhamyam. Krishna says, yes, that for my devotee, I will take care of what they need to make spiritual advancement. And I will protect their spiritual advancement. So what we need sometimes is suffering, because we are too much attached to enjoyment. We cannot let it go. There's a verse in the 10th canto, 88:8. Yasyan anuhinami arishyetattanam sanai. Where my devotee says, is too much attached to things in this world, but is weak in heart and he cannot let it go, then by force I take everything away from him. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, he says in the purport, in the 8th canto, this is the first installment of Krishna's mercy. First installment. How do I know that there is a second installment? But the first installment is that verse. So that's the first installment. Krishna takes away what we are attached to. And it's painful that I experienced myself how Krishna takes everything away. But he does that only when you have some sincerity in the heart to make spiritual advancements. You must want to give up this material life. You must want to give it up. Otherwise, he does not do it. He does not give you the first installment. Like 30 years ago, I started to chant Hare Krishna. And I must say, in the 80s, I had my own software company and business in Ghent. was running very successful. I was married, 2 children, I had my own house, I had a big car, a big bank balance, everything you need. I was successful materially, and I started to chant Hare Krishna. What happened? In 1 year's time, I started to chant Hare Krishna. That my associates got in a quarrel and the business collapsed. My wife, she found another man. I got divorced. My parents threw me out because I became a Hare Krishna. So I lost everything. I had to pay for the education of my children. I gave all possessions away. After 1 year, I got nothing anymore. And everyone threw me out. What could I do? I joined the temple. That's the only thing I could do, right? So Krishna plucked me out of a very, very entangled situation with children, family, so many work. And he put me right in the association of devotees where I could make spiritual advancement. And suddenly I became happy. I remember these first years in Rwanda where I was very happy. Before I was so miserable. So Krishna takes away your cause of suffering. And that's the first installment of the mercy. But then the second installment comes. That's another thing. But first you have to go to test. Markandeya Rishi, I think he left already this planet, disciple of Prabhupada from Australia, I think. He asked Srila Prabhupada, does Krishna test us? Does he give us tests? Srila Prabhupada said, yes, Krishna gives us tests. And then Markandeya Rishi said, but are the tests always becoming more heavy, more heavy, more heavy? Srila Prabhupada said, no. Once you pass the exam, you pass the exam. No more tests. It's interesting. But first we have to pass the tests. Surrender. So we are put, if we become devotees, we are put in certain conditions, circumstances by the will of Krishna. And by the reactions of our past, previous actions. And let's think about his past, previous actions. What does the scripture say about this? One example. You kill a cow. What is the reaction? Can someone tell me what's the reaction of killing a cow? No, you are all great scholars. Please tell me. What's the reaction?
Or bad karma?
Yeah, what is that karma? Precise.
For all the hairs.
Yeah.
All the hairs, body of the cow. You have to be killed in a similar manner.
Yeah. So how many hairs are there on the body of a cow?
Endless.
That. So and how long did it take to kill a cow?
1 minute.
Yeah, let's say 20 minutes to kill a cow, or half an hour, whatever it takes. That and what karma do you get? How many births you get from? And one who eats meat gets the same karma. Can we understand this? Of course, if we chant Hare Krishna without offenses, that can be very quickly cleared out. But we cannot understand how much karma that we have. That for millions of lives, then there is the mercy of Krishna. Because in this life, we get a little bit of this karma. Only a little bit in this life. We get a pinch of the karma in this life, right? But who decides about the pinch that you are going to get? It's Krishna. And we should remember that. So we are put in certain circumstances by the will of Krishna. And if you become a devotee, Krishna does it in such a way that you will learn and give up this attachment. The level we have to attain is there that Prahlad Maharaj said that stop trying to become happy in this world. Means happiness of the body and the mind. Stop doing that. From the moment you stop doing that, then your real happiness will start. And that's a very deep point here. So finally, everything is meant, if we become devotees, to bring us closer to Krishna. The devotee sees Krishna's merciful hand in everything, and the devotee is responsible. The mentality of a devotee is described as 10:14:8 of the Bhagavatam. Tertenu kampam samikshana bunjatma evatma ketam vibhagam reitvakhva probeer vidadanaste shivetu mukti pade sadaya bhak. While undergoing suffering, a devotee thinks, oh, Krishna is so kind. I desire much more suffering, but he gives me only the pinch, a little bit. He's so kind. And when you have that mentality, then you are ready to go back to Godhead, back to the spiritual world. I will end now with reciting some quotes of Srila Prabhupada from lectures on this verse, Tatena Kampamsa Samikshana. And it's very interesting. That. This is just a quote. Despite Kali, if one can see Krishna's mercy in everything, one becomes eligible to the kingdom of God. That and Srila Prabhupada was in Calcutta during the Second World War, and the Japanese were throwing bombs. Bombs were falling. And everyone was running for shelter, but Srila Prabhupada saw the bombs as Krishna personally. And he said, whatever Krishna wants. And he was taking his lunch, his kachoris, and finished it peacefully. So, on this verse, Tatena Kampam, Vrindavan, 1974, on Srimad Bhagavatam 1.4.36, said, many times Srila Prabhupada spoke on this point. If we simply remember that Krishna has put me in this condition, in this condition of life, that is very nice. So a devotee sees whether I'm suffering or not. Krishna put me in this position because that's the reaction of my past karma. And I did these things in the past, so I'm responsible. So whatever he gives is good. I'm satisfied with that. So the devotee is satisfied always, Srila Prabhupada said. Whatever condition Lord Krishna has given me, that's all right. It is His mercy, His grace. By His grace, I got this position. My only business is to remember Krishna at any stage of life. This from another lecture in Vrindavan, September 11, 1976. Don't think that things are taking place automatically. Nothing happens by chance. So even in reversed condition, a devotee does not see anything happening without the direction of Krishna. He sees always Krishna's hand. Even if it's in an adverse condition, which implies that things are going exactly opposite that I want, right? This adverse condition is also under the direction of Krishna. Why should I take this adverse position not as Krishna's mercy? A devotee is not disturbed by adverse conditions, Srila Prabhupada said. This is a gift of Krishna. It is Krishna's mercy. So anyone who takes it in that way, as Krishna's mercy, Mukta Pade Sadaya Bhak. He's going back to God, it's guaranteed. As he takes everything as Krishna's mercy. We can say, is that advanced knowledge? No, it's just the primary knowledge. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Denesmin Satade Kamram Chavram Charata Tade Antara Praptir Dhyas Tatranam Uchati. Oh Arjuna, your body changes. You are not a body, but your body changes. That from boy to youth to old age. And you are in the body, and you must become Dhira. You just tolerate all these changes. So Krishna says, tolerate. Don't retaliate, tolerate. It says, matras pasta kantias snasaka dukata agamapagina natyas tamstis vabarata. Like you must tolerate the heat in the summer and the cold in the winter, and you have to tolerate the perception of the senses and the interaction with these sense objects. It's all done by material nature, and you are not his body, but you have to tolerate. And when you can tolerate, Krishna says, Yamina Vyadatantrete Purusham Purushashapa Samdakasram Sriam Somitat Vaya Kalpate. Then, if you become equal in this happiness and distress, you can go back to God. It says the same thing right there in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita. So what I'm explaining here is not the advanced knowledge, it is the most basic knowledge. But it requires an advanced understanding to practice it nicely. That it is about how we relate to Krishna, our relationship with Krishna. These material things should not disturb our relationship with Krishna. And Krishna wants to see that. How much we love him, even in the most adverse conditions. So Krishna is always merciful, Srila Prabhupada says. One should not take anything as not being his mercy. Lord Krishna has sympathy, anukampam. So one who sees this anukampam is compassion, adayabhak. He has the right to become liberated. So that's the mercy of God in any circumstances. If one accepts God's mercy in any condition and thus one does not do anything wrong to anyone, such a person is guaranteed to be liberated, Srila Prabhupada said. That's the injunction of Shastra. I remember this is 5 years ago, I was in Leicester, and a godbrother of mine, Amsakati Krishna was his name. He had cancer in the intestines, and it was so advanced he could not eat or drink anymore. Finished. And already 3 months he had not eaten anything, not drink anything, and I was visiting him every day. But I could only visit him for 20 minutes because he was so big. And every time and he could not concentrate for long. But every time he saw me, he was in such a horrible condition, and he would smile and say, Jai Prabhupada. And then he tried to read something of one of Srila Prabhupada's small books, and he would tell a bit about that. So one day, just 1 week before he left, I came to him and I said, Amsakati Prabhu, now you have to accept everything, good or bad, as Krishna's mercy. And he told me, he replied, he said, no, there is no good or bad. It's all Krishna's mercy, he said. He realized it. That. And then 1 week later, he was in the hospital then, because he was so bad I was with him in the afternoon, but he could not speak. My spiritual master, Bhakti Charamats, had given me a message for him. I was not sure that he would hear it, but I spoke it in his ear, the letter. And at the end, he gave some sign with his, that he has heard it. So that day was the day that Srila Prabhupada started our movement in New York. And we had a program in the evening, and they did Guru Puja for Srila Prabhupada. And then the next day, I brought Srila Prabhupada's garland with me. And to my surprise, when I arrived at the hospital, I was thinking maybe he left his body. He was sitting in a seat. They had given him some water, injected him, and he was a little better. And I offered him. He was sitting there, and he was smiling. There was in the hospitals in Britain. It's not like in Belgium. Mostly you have 6 in one area, a ward they call it, and it's open. It's not really a room. It's like you are on a public that, and right at the other side, there was a man who was just got an operation, and he was crying and lamenting. And in the bed in the corner, there was an old lady, 90 years, and she was always crying. And there I saw Hamsagati Krishna is going to leave his body, and he left the next day, and he was smiling. And he offered him Srila Prabhupada's garland. And he smiled, and he spoke very, very softly. I dreamt last night that Srila Prabhupada offered me his garment. That was mystical. But he realized that everything is Krishna's mercy. And we must also come to that realization before we leave this world. To conclude, Srila Prabhupada, 1975, June 22nd. The devotee is suffering from adverse condition, then he's feeling very much obliged and says, "Oh, my dear Lord, it is your great mercy that I'm suffering." This is a devotee. He's suffering and he's taking it as a great mercy of God. Anukampa means mercy, so this is your mercy. Thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful for you. And if there are any questions?
Very helpful, yes, very nice.
Yeah.
You see, this is a very deep thing, because in these times now, we are very easily, because it's just a strange time, it's very easy to point our finger that, oh, they are guilty of everything in this world, or this group, or this conspiracy, or this or that. This is called the blame game. It will not clearly, by these teachings, we can understand, Maharaj explained very deeply, that these things will not help us. And we know, I told a couple of times, that when Gorkasora Babaji Maharaj was walking in Navadvip, and that then the Goswamis' children were throwing stones at him on the back. And he said, at one point he became angry, and he turned around to the boys, apparently, and he just said, what did he say? "Krishna, if you don't stop this, I'm going to tell your mother."
So that's, yeah.
He was so absorbed in Krishna consciousness that he did not see any cause except Krishna. How nice.
Yeah, it's interesting. Krishna, for material nature, he had the remote cause, but for his devotee, he intervenes immediately, personally, and that's so beautiful. That's living in a relationship with Krishna. Thank you. That's a very nice example. Any other questions?
Anybody else has a comment or a question for Maharaj?
Maharaj, you're speaking always about mercy, but how must I see mercy? Is it a way of compassion or is it a way of grace? Because when you speak about grace, mercy, then Krishna can punish us or set us free. So how must I interpret it, mercy as compassion or grace or both?
That it's both, because we need to understand, at least I'm also trying to understand that mostly we see if something bad happens, we have difficulty to see that as a lost mercy. When it's something good happens, if we get nice prasad and everything is nice, that's Krishna's mercy. But then something so-called bad happens. But that bad is for the body. We are not the body. And we are experiencing this pain because we are identified with the body. And that's very deep. Very deep. Like I told that a few times when that if you identify with the body, that's like you are in the seat of a dentist, and then you are forced to concentrate on the boring and all these things, and you suffer like anything. That because our consciousness is in the body, we identify with the body. It's very, very deep rooted, this identification. But a pure devotee, he does not identify with the body. That when Srila Prabhupada came for the last time to London, the Bhaktivedanta Manor, he was a little better. In August 1977, he came to London, but in London he felt sick again. And a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, when I was in bed, Srila Prabhupada, are you suffering? And Srila Prabhupada said, I don't feel anything. That's the difference. And that's a high consciousness. If we identify, the more we identify, the more we are in bodily consciousness, the more we suffer. The more we are identified with our real self, then we don't suffer. Therefore, absorption in Krishna consciousness, that's the point. It is just by absorbing and hearing the Bhagavatam, at least the Bhagavatam says during the time we are absorbed in hearing about Krishna, we forget this material world. We don't suffer. That if you have every morning Bhagavatam class, you don't suffer. That I was for a few years, I've done in Radhadesh, the Pujari service, the whole morning service, and you are so busy with Krishna, you forget, it's so blissful. You forget about, it's our mind is our enemy. Our mind makes us identify with this body. And we have to train our mind. Yes. Anyway, but many times we cannot let it go. We are too deep in this bodily consciousness. And Krishna says, because we are attached to things in this world. And therefore Krishna gives us suffering so that we become frustrated. And that we at the end say, now it has been too much, now I let it go. And then you are free from suffering forever. And that's what Krishna is doing. And that is his mercy. And we need to understand that we are here for a short time. Soon we are all going, but we are eternal. We are not this body. And realizing we have to learn our lesson, that for millions of births we have identified with the body, and it's deeply rooted to get out of it. It's not easy, but the chanting without offenses helps very much. That an association of devotees follows Srila Prabhupada's program, you will come out of it. It will go better. At least it goes better when we practice spiritual life. So there is hope. And we can say, as Krishna says in 410 of the Gita, Pitaraya Bhayakata Manmaya Bhava Manma, yeah, Pitaraya Bhayakoda Manma. What's the verse again? That's a very encouraging verse. Pitaraya Krishna says many sages in the past have become free from these attachments and aversion and vita, raga, and free from fear. And how did they do it? By realizing this transcendental knowledge. That's what we are doing. We are discussing it. We have discussed one aspect of the philosophy today, and we try to help ourselves to realize it. You, me, and all of us. And that is our purification, the realization of that. And many became purified by this knowledge, Krishna says, and developed love for me. He says, many have done it. We can also do it. We are not the first one who went to it. So Krishna encourages us. Many have done it. We can do it. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Something else?
Maybe somebody else has a question or a comment. Then I may ask something or I may say something.
Sure.
That is that, so the bodily identification with the body and the mind will make us bound to point out the perpetrators around us and become entangled in the same way. And there's a verse Krishna says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, chapter 28 to Uddhava, and there's verse 2, number 2. There's 11:28:2. He says, Para Sobhava Karmani Yaha Prasam Sati Nindati Sa Asu Brash Yate Swartat Asatya Bi Abhine Vesataha. This is 11:28:2. Whoever indulges in praising or criticizing the qualities and behavior of others will quickly become deviated from his own best interest. Now, best interest means bhakti, prema, by his entanglement in illusory dualities. So Krishna explains it many places, what you explained here, Maharaj, how the entanglement works. Krishna also explains it here. And my question is, I want to hear your version of this. I have some idea, but I want to hear from you that we do praise the devotees for their devotional activities.
Yeah, we know that Ramachandra Puri, who criticized Lord Chaitanya, he practiced the first part of this verse. He never praised devotees, but he practiced. But the second part, criticizing devotees, he was very good in that. But yes, praising, and I would say that the point is that everything we do in this world, all our capacities, they are Krishna's capacities.
Yes.
And if we praise someone, that's not appropriate because we should praise Krishna. It's he doing that.
Yes, yes.
But at the other side, we can praise the sincerity of a devotee. That's related to the spirit soul, our sincerity, our desire to serve Krishna nicely. And that's spiritual. But these material things, it's all Krishna doing, and it's not really appropriate that one may say, I'm doing wonderful things, so this devotee is doing wonderful things. It's Krishna doing through this devotee. And therefore we can understand that he got mercy, but it's not doing. So that is, but then also when we develop devotional service, when we perform devotional service, our qualities of the spirit soul becomes revealed. And these qualities, they can be praised because that are our natural qualities.
Hare Krishna.
So that's my understanding.
Yes, that's our understanding too, Maharaj. So when we praise a devotee, we might say, Prabhu, you got such nicely inspired by Krishna in your seva. I also want to be inspired like that by Krishna in my seva.
Sure.
Like this. And in this way, we're praising actually Krishna and his devotee.
Yeah.
And she said that months ago, that we should pray like this one here.
Yeah, sure. That's very, very appropriate. Thank you. That's nice discussion.
Class, very nice, a beautiful class.
Yeah.
It's very appropriate for this time in the world here also in the situations. Very appropriate.
Sure. Yeah, it's helpful. We need that now. That knowledge. Sure.
We cannot wait for the next session.
Yeah.
Maybe the same topic, not more deepened or more. I don't know how deeper you can go in the same topic, but maybe the next level or something also, because you intended also to speak on the next level, so we can maybe do that another time and next time.
Yeah, we can go more in surrender, because I was teaching the Bhaktivedanta course, and I went very deeply in the last 14 chapters of the 8th canto. That's mostly about the surrender of Pali Maharaj. And I think it would be nice if we can speak on that because I went through all the commentaries of the acharyas and also the realizations, and I would be happy to share that, another time. Good. I'll be here for some time in Brussels now, I think.
Yes, Maharaj, we don't give you one date then, because one date we will not do. We have to give you more dates than one.
Okay, good.
I will do that. Huh?
Thank you.
I hope that you can find the time to grace us and bless us with these beautiful teachings. Yeah. And we're very, very happy today.
Good. And thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for your time. Huh?
And I'm looking forward to the next session in whatever form it happens. That it's all up. My Bojam Prabhu used always to say, and I always think always in that way, if Krishna willing.
Krishna willing, yes.
And that's, so if Krishna willing, we will meet again soon. Thank you very much. Jai Prabhupada, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. My grandfather even used to say, he was not a devotee, he used to say, bij leven en welzijn.
Bij leven en welzijn.
Wijs wel toe.
Morgen gezond weer op.
Dat is een mooie conclusie, dank u.
Maar
Hare
dit is-
Krishna, Jai Prabhupada.